Greetings and welcome, everyone. It's All You Can Geek Moviecast, episode 579. I'm one of your hosts, Jim Guest, joined by Mike Sneedy,
What's up?
Cory Feinsod,
Yo!
and Tony Korkanakis.
Hello, hello.
Welcome, guys. Welcome, listeners and viewers. Viewers on Twitch, welcome. If you hope you're watching this live. This is our of the year for movies this week, folks.
Indeed.
This is the of the years. We have games coming up. We've got TV shows coming up, an episode for that. Then we do our most anticipated for 2022 on games and movies. And unfortunately, that list may look like last year's. Who knows? For some people, or the last 3 years, right, Cory? But this is a fun one. This is our of the year. So what we do on this, just to give you guys a brief history of how this works. These are not necessarily the best movies of the year. This is the stuff we saw that we enjoyed the most. Again, we don't see every movie. We're not a critic. We don't leave reviews on things like that. We love to talk about them, and that's why we have a podcast.
We're not going deep dive into the makings of films to see how well they're made, and yeah. So
We're not going to talk mise en scène or anything.
No
shot, reverse shot.
No, and I do know that
diegetic sound.
We get to we're gonna get into our worst movies of the year, our most surprising movies of the year, and our best movies, and we'll do our top 3 on the bests. That's the format. So we're gonna be doing that each week: movies, TVs, and games. So let's we're ready to get into this, guys.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's go. All right, we're gonna kick off with our worst. Let's kick it off with the worst. The worst is
bad news first, huh?
Yeah. I love because how many times do we start a podcast and accidentally end on the down note? We hate that, but we do it because the way the news breaks sometimes it just happens. So this time we're gonna start in the down note, and I should actually write these things down while we do this. But for me, and stop me if I'm wrong, the worst movie I've seen this year, spoilers here for all those wondering, is The Matrix. It just
that was mine.
It had that. Yeah, it just had that that sour taste presence after you're done watching it, to the point where, like, Cory, remember
during.
You're right, during as well, because Cory, during the movie, he leaned over and he's like, "Do you know what's going on?" This is like an hour and a half into the movie. I'm like, I have no clue. I'm like, thank God somebody else just said something, because I'm thinking the same thing. I'm like, am I just missing something here?
Why are they doing this? It's not like, what's going on? It's like, why are they even doing what they're doing? And that was the issue. I was like, there really was no point for them to do what they were doing.
Yeah. Folks that's listening, I do want to say that there may be spoilers during.
There will definitely be spoilers.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you hear us call,
you cannot do this and not go into spoilers.
Yeah. I know that you're probably used to hearing that by now, but I have to tell you all that because The Matrix was god awful terrible, and just the beginning of it talking about Warner Brothers is forcing them to make a video game, another Matrix video game, and I'm like, that sounds weird that they're putting this here, because it seems like this is what this is doing, and it felt like that the entire movie. It felt like Warner Brothers was like, we're gonna make a sequel. You can come back, or we're gonna do it anyways. That's what I felt like they did to them. Exactly what the plot of the movie was.
That's 100% what they did.
Yeah, and so it's like, so that means that Lana Wachowski just made the movie out of spite, and even did it like that in the story. They just purposely made this terrible story. I feel like it was done on purpose. Like,
I mean, that's fine. Like, if that was actually the big brain play by Lana, then props to her. Good for her for just being like, you know what, fine. If you're forcing this to happen, I'm gonna make it so bad. I'm gonna light this shit on fire that it ruins this franchise. Like,
that's the vibe. That's the vibe.
Bravo, Lana. Like, you had that big brain play. If that's the case.
That was the vibe I got this entire movie. It was being made out of having a necessity, because they're going ahead anyways.
And they reminded you in the movie. That's what you're alluding to.
Yeah.
They just remind you this is not what they wanted to do.
Yeah, so this was easily the worst movie of the year that I've seen this year, and I saw some pretty bad ones, some letdown movies. And one of my surprises this year actually is going to be more because it's a letdown. But this movie just clear front runner. When I left the movie, I was at like a 4.5. Like, I was there leaving the theater, and usually when you leave the theater, you're a little bit higher because you're fresh off of the take of it, and you're like, okay, that was fun. No, I was already down on it, and then the further away you get, the more like I never want to watch this movie again, ever. So
Maybe.
this is like a bet losing. This is like a losing a bet thing. So Tony, you saw it. It's your worst.
I mean,
go ahead, talk.
I forget what episode we talked about it, but yeah, it's just awful. There was no reason for this movie to happen. Like, imagine if you take Star Wars: The Force Awakens, and you're like, hey, what if we did that, but made it terrible in every conceivable way? Like, any way you could bring up nostalgia is done in this cheap, undeserved, like, lowbrow just kind of way. It's like, oh my god, that's the blue pill! Holy shit, it's the blue pill, guys! Oh my god! It's like, nobody fucking cares. Like, well, that wasn't the point of the fucking movie. But it's like, oh man, he's eating the blue pills, which is making him stay in the Matrix. It's like, oh god, it's like too on the nose.
They also kept rehashing the old scenes. Like, hey, you remember this? You remember this scene?
You remember this?
Like,
Yeah.
constantly.
You remember this? Remember this? It's like, don't you love that first movie? It's so cool, guys. It's so cool. It's like, yeah, I know, which is why I'm watching this one. But you're making me. It's kind of like you're almost retroactively making me like the first one less because I'm watching this right now. So it's just,
I agree.
It's awful. I feel like every actor and actress phoned it in. I mean, Keanu, I love him, but just he seemed bored and confused the whole time. And I know a lot of that has to do with the character, but it's just like at no point did it ever like come full circle. And it's like, oh, okay, like this is Neo and stuff like that. And it didn't make sense narratively either. Like, there's no reason for this to have existed. In actuality, there was one interesting plot point where it's like, oh hey, the machines had a civil war of their own because they were fighting over resources. That could have been really interesting. Like, I want to see a movie about that, but it's like, nah, you're not gonna get that. It's like
you get the same stuff.
You're gonna get a retread of the first of Matrix for the first half of the movie, and we're not even gonna explain to you that, spoiler alert, Neo died and the robots recreated him and Trinity. It's like, why? Like, it's just dumb. Yeah. Like, any series that would do this, it's dumb. Like, I swear. And like Star Wars, I love the shit in Star Wars. It's like, somehow Palpatine has returned. It's like, cool. Yep, let's do this all day, guys. Writers of Hollywood.
Let me one up a little higher on that. If you had a virus that was taking your machine system down, the Matrix down for you, like it was killing you, and you made a deal with the savior of the Matrix universe to go and kill him, why would you bring him back?
Here's the thing for this too. I think I've watched 4 movies this year, and this is my biggest disappointment as well. But I have slightly different gripes, and I actually think I liked it more than you guys. And I don't like it, but maybe I think there's aspects of it that were okay. But to me, this same problem here is the same problem that was with the third movie. What exactly happens there at the end, though? Like, Neo makes peace, but everyone's still in the Matrix. That state of whatever. It reminds me a little bit of a Mass Effect ending. Like, you fight the Reapers the whole time, but then you don't at the end. You're like, oh, let's make peace, or let's choose a button that says something else. It's the same thing. It's the same idea too. The whole humans versus machines. The whole premise was fighting against them, not to do some weird cyclical nonsense where nothing really happens.
It didn't progress.
This is just kind of like what happens based on the third movie, and to me, I put this at the same level as the third movie, which is bad, but I think it's right there. I think it's a continuation of the third movie.
Are you in the ballpark of a 4, 5? Where are you at?
I never got maybe a 5 or something.
You would give it a 5? That's high. That's
high.
I
mean, there's some entertainment value in this movie.
All right. I guess you could find some. The action sequences were badass.
Some of it was good. It wasn't, Matrix level, but some of the action was good.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. That was your disappointing as well. I am now very interested to hear what Cory's most disappointing movie was this year. I was like, I gotta hear it. It's the variant. Like, I gotta know what it is. Go.
Yeah, my most disappointing is Venom. Let there be carnage.
Oh, okay, good.
It was between Matrix and Venom, and
I didn't see
that was like I didn't really have any hopes for Matrix being good. I was like, let's just see what happens.
You steered me away from Venom. You steered me away from Venom, so I can't talk
Carnage
about
is
it.
really cool character that
Yeah.
is you could do interesting things with. The first one was promising. We liked that one. It was surprising. And
Yeah.
now it's like, all right, you got some momentum. Spider-Man's killing it, and so like, what are you gonna do here? And you just like make this movie the worst aspects of what we feared Venom could be. It's like I don't like the fact that Venom is its own character, separate from Eddie Brock. They do work together, but they're completely separate characters. And Venom, as the symbiote, is like a kind of the runt of the litter, almost of like the symbiotes as well.
Turn him into Wolverine.
And he's like weak and compared to other symbiotes, so he needs to be able to feed off of or use like these conduits to like have any power whatsoever, it seems. And then he goes off on a toddler tantrum and just like abandons Eddie. It's just like, and then he's got his own thing that he's doing separate from Eddie Brock. They're just doing their own thing. This movie.
We are Venom. It's we are Venom, right?
No, it's
not. That's supposed to be.
It's the way it's supposed to be. But go on.
And then the Carnage character is just terrible. Like, he's like the psycho, which is fine. That's what he's supposed to be. And then, like, there's no rhyme or reason why he gets the symbiote or why Venom like has an offspring. There's no reason for it. The reason he's in jail is because he murdered a bunch of people, but they can't prove it really. But they know he did it, and yet they don't know how to, like, they have no bodies. And then Eddie Brock just walks by his cell and then figures out the entire thing. Well, Venom figures out the entire thing and is like, oh yeah, this is where all the bodies are. And then he gets all this credit, Eddie Brock, for being this like super sleuth detective who can't, like, detectives can't do anything. So like Eddie Brock has to come in and save the day. And so it's just really weird, like, storylines that just don't really come together. And then at the end, they have this big battle, and yet Venom is terrified of Carnage because he's a red one. But they never explain what a red one means, what that does. He's just a red one, and so it's just weird. And then and then they just like cap it off with like him eating Venom, Carnage at the end. Like, he just eats the Carnage symbiote, and then it's over.
How does that work? Eating? Would you
kills-
just absorb the powers, or?
I don't know. He kills Cassidy, and then like Venom kills because they get separated. Because really, like, Cassidy's in love with this other woman, and they're psychos together. And then Carnage character doesn't care about her and tries to like get her out of the way, and so he tries to save her, and they get separated. And then Eddie's able to kill Cassidy, and there's just a symbiote with no host, and so he eats him, and that's how it ends. So, like, yeah,
Hey.
you don't need to see the movie now. Like, that's,
No, I have zero plans to ever see it. So
Oh, yeah, Let There Be Carnage was terrible. The only saving grace was that, maybe I thought that they were going to take him out of that Venom universe and then he'll be in the hands of Marvel. But it doesn't seem that way after another movie we saw.
no.
So we'll see.
All right, guys, that's the worst ofs. That's The Matrix and Venom. Disappointing. Yeah, worst of the years for us. Disappointing, whatever you want to say. Surprises of the year, though, and this can be good or bad. What's that?
We'll do the snake thing here because I like to talk about my own surprise.
Go ahead.
Mine
Surprising.
was surprising. Like, this was the easiest thing for me. Like, soon as like, all right, what is the most surprising movie? It's got to be Zack Snyder's Justice League, because that movie was actually a watchable and enjoyable film. It was 4 hours long, and I did not expect that. And I enjoyed the entire time I was watching that film. And I hated what they did to like the Justice League in general. Like, I really love Ben Affleck's Batman, but like they just made that movie terrible. And then all the weird Joss Whedon influences. And yeah, this one like was so surprising that they actually turned the original Justice League movie from what they had into an actual enjoyable movie that was coherent and had a storyline and was actually something that made sense and that you could see, oh, this is where they were going with it. This would have been better than what they did and put out in the world for everyone to see. So yeah, Zack Snyder's easy for me is most surprising.
I could see that because well, I didn't hate it, and that's a good thing. So
And
all right,
I liked it. Yeah.
Zack Snyder's Justice League. Okay, Mike.
I mean, it's the same thing for me, actually, for the same reasons.
Oh,
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
there's only what,
I
four
was
movies that I watched.
I watched again. I watched 4 movies, including this, which kind of didn't really feel like a movie in some ways either. But it's 4 hours that you watch
Like how
streaming basically.
you watched 4 movies and you unfortunately one of them was The Matrix. I'm sorry, man. It's just I'm
I
go
didn't
on,
have
but
I
go on.
didn't go to see it. I saw it
I
on
know.
HBO
Corey and
Max.
I did, but go on. Yes.
But no, this the most surprising thing for this, aside from it like mostly being good, was it held my attention for the whole time, and it makes me a little sad that we didn't get this that way at first, but no, and I was surprised how much was reshot as well, and how much they put into it, and it's it's gonna have to be one of my best, isn't it? So you'll see how high it is later, but definitely surprised that this turned out good and watchable even after all of that time.
Yeah, no, it's amazing what they did with that, and just a little editing and a little less CGI'd out mustache, and you can have a good movie.
Yeah. All right, Tony, what did you got for your surprise?
Surprise is going to be Black Widow. Cheating here because it is another movie, but we're going to be talking about that in a few minutes. But in a way that was like, going into this, I was kind of like, well, we already know the fate of Black Widow due to Avengers and stuff like that.
What's the point?
Right, I was like, this is what, I think we all talked about, like, kind of what's the point at this, at this point, to like make a movie about this character that doesn't have a future. But I was really pleasantly surprised that they actually managed to make me like the character in a way that she never really got during most of the movies. Over the 10-year span, starting with Iron Man 2 and through the Avengers movies and stuff like that. So I was surprised by like how grounded her character outside of like the Black Widow persona was, but also the dynamic with her made up family, and including her sister. And Yelena is just a really, really good counterpart to her, whereas like Black Widow is like all serious, no nonsense, kind of straight laced, and like her sister's like equally as skilled, but kind of on the opposite side of the spectrum. So I'm excited to see more of that in the MCU, which we already got a little bit of, and I'm happy to see where they take that further.
It was like a good turning point in Endgame. They kind of explored the character a little more, and then you're like, all right, well, that's good. But then it's like, what was the point of this movie? And now it's like, oh, I could see you getting a little more background and a little more like heart-to-heart stuff, and see where she's coming from. And it's heartbreaking too, because you almost get to say goodbye.
Yeah, that's true, and you almost get like that's the part it hits, and then like you get, it was almost like their own Disney Plus show on a movie is really what I felt like. It was like exploring, because Disney Plus shows seem to be right now exploring these characters that we know so well, but not as well as like Iron Man, or what I mean, like, but these are the characters we get to get their story. So this was a fun movie. Like, I really enjoyed it.
It was really fun. I would say like the first 2/3 of the movie gave me that Winter Soldier or like James Bond type, like
James Bond, really. I got that vibe.
It was more grounded, more spy espionage kind of stuff. And then last third obviously was like Marvel shenanigans and stuff like that, which it's a formula for a reason, because it works and stuff like that. But yeah, it was a surprise to me, because I liked it a lot more than I thought I would going into it.
That's a good one.
Yeah. It was good. My surprise is unfortunately not a positive surprise. Not negative. It's not terrible. My surprise was the Eternals. Marvel's Eternals. A movie, like, after, again, going back to Black Widow and how much fun that was, and it was a movie that I was like, don't have a lot of interest in seeing that movie, Tony. Just like, I was like, it was like before we went and saw it, and so I'm like, it was great. It was fun, though. It was a good movie. I enjoyed it. So I'm like, okay, Eternals, I'm going to probably enjoy this movie still. I'm not expecting gold from it, but I'm going to still enjoy it, because I saw some of the reviews, and I'm like, okay, but I'm still going to enjoy this movie. And I didn't. And it really fell flat, especially after all of the Marvel shows this year, and then Black Widow hit, and they've been on a roll, and I'm just like, this movie just hit, and it was flat. I just don't like any of the characters. Yeah. And the funny is, prior to this, Angelina Jolie is the one character I was like, why the fuck did they cast her? Like, this is gonna be horrible with her in it. And she was literally the only character in that movie that I actually was, wow, she did a fantastic job, and I love that character. Like, that was it. And by that by itself was surprising. And but I really felt for her. Like, she really nailed that character, and she really put it like she put her acting like that was really well done. Like, she put her all into that character. Like, it wasn't phoned in, and I give her full credit because the rest of this movie felt bland and just nothing. Like, it's not going to make a worst of the year list, but it's just there's nothing spectacular about it. It's I would almost put it near the Dark World level, but it's better than that. But it's not. You know what I mean? Like, it's not something you have to ever watch again.
This Marvel bar, and when it
yes,
below the bar, you're like, whoa, this stands out because
it was
here doesn't belong.
That's what happened. It was just kind of like I've been on this joyride all year. Like, even like Hawkeye was fun. Like, it was afterwards, but I'm like everything I've gotten from Marvel this year has been fun. This movie just wasn't fun. This movie was not a great villain. There was not a great story. I didn't like the characters. They're not likable gods among men, and they just act like it. And they don't learn their lessons with that. I mean, it's just kind of like, come on. Like, Superman has his flaws, and that's the idea of Superman. These guys were all Superman, and they had no flaws, and they didn't care. Like, that's the problem with this movie. It's the Superman issue.
Yeah.
So, that's my surprise.
That's here. Yeah, I mean, Marvel's bar is just so high right now. You can't.
That's it. That's it. It's just average. It's not even average. It's just a little below average, and I'm just like, yeah, surprising. All right. Let's go to the of the years. We have our top 3 list here. I have to get this open phone. My number 3 list. I'm going to kick us off here. We're going snake order here. So, number 3 for me, a very recent movie I just talked about, I think last week, Encanto. Number 3 movie of this year. I love the movie. I know, Cory, didn't hit for you, but man, after looking back at all the movies that came out this year and how I'm okay. Full like, I'm working my butt off right now with my office and stuff when I'm doing at work, and I've got the soundtrack on for that in my it's got that. It's from Lin-Manuel Miranda, and it's from like the Hamilton guy, which he's got such catchy music. It really does, and it just gets stuck in your head, and that enhances this movie. And like it's just, while there wasn't like a true villain thing in the story, like it's great, but I think that's amazing that you can have a movie that's this impactful that doesn't have a true villain. Like, I think that's kind of cool. So I really enjoyed it. It's very new, so I'm gonna try not to spoil this at all for anybody because it is pretty new, and I would check it out if I were you guys. Like, this is my number 3 movie. It's really well done, and the woman from Brooklyn Nine-Nine is the main character. She did Rosa. Yeah, she did a fantastic job as the main character. Mirabelle is the character.
Well, yeah, what's the character in Brooklyn Nine-Nine?
I think it was Rosa. So apparently my watch was listening for that. But that was my number 3 movie. Tony, your number 3?
Number 3 was going to be Demon Slayer, the Mugen Train.
Hell yeah.
I was wondering if this was going to be on both your lists, actually. Like, I'm like, is this going to make your number 1? Because it could be up there.
It could be up there.
Yeah.
I love this movie a lot. Obviously, the animated series is highly praised, and it's one of the top performing series and now movie in Japan ever. I believe it's the highest grossing animated film in Japan.
Especially right in COVID, like, people weren't really sure yet.
Right, exactly. But, got localized here earlier in the year and stuff like that. So got to finally see, what that was all about. And just the animation alone is just gorgeous to look at from start to finish. And some of the stuff they do is just like, wow, this is what happens when you throw a budget at a team of highly skilled animators that are going to do some really cool fights and choreography and stuff like that. It was really nice to see the continuation of the series from where season 1 stopped, instead of just being typical anime movie where it's like, this is just a filler made up story. It never really counts, so to speak. They bucked the trend. We're like, hey, the next arc we're actually just going to do in a movie form. So it was a way for people to see what happens next without waiting for the second season, which I really appreciated because, not many series do that. And I can't really think of.
Yeah, I mean, that's the most surprising thing about this is that you have anime and then like they want to capitalize on popularity, but they have like an arc that they're going through and they don't want to break that and so they just make this offshoot thing that has no place in what you're enjoying, and so it's like so disjointed, and yet here you're getting to meet the character you met at the end of the first season, and see this character, and then go and the villain, obviously from the end of the first season, and see that guy, and it's like just really really nice that they're giving you more story that you were waiting for this whole time. Because, yeah, we were waiting for this, and like, oh, we gotta wait for this movie to come out now. Oh no, guys, this is part of the story. You gotta watch this. So,
yeah,
it's awesome.
So it's just awesome. The reason it doesn't rank a little higher is just because the first half is a little slow, maybe too slow, for my personal preference, especially on like a rewatch or something. I think I'd probably fast forward through that or just skip to the middle portion. But maybe after the first third, it really kicks up. And then even towards like the back middle half, I was like, oh, okay. I mean, this is really good. Don't get me wrong, but like I was like, I don't see why it's like so highly praised and stuff like that. But then you get to the last part and you're like, oh shit. Okay, I see what this is all about. Why. Yeah, and it lives up to every kind of expectation or hype you could possibly be exposed to, and it just they make a new character really memorable and really lovable. So it's just like, okay, this is really cool. So it's a very resounding like memory, like kind of just imprint. Right.
Yeah, we were both like, I mean, even like sitting through the beginning part, like, okay, this is really neat. We're getting more story, but how much can you do in the setting you're in,
right?
And in the time that you have, because this takes place on a train, and so you're like, oh, all right, well, I guess this is what they're gonna do, and then it like starts building up, like, oh, this is pretty cool. I love the fact that this character has to like basically kill himself to kind of wake up, and you're like, oh, and then they kind of like make you doubt that it's real or dreaming, and it's like, oh, what's happening? But then once that stuff stops, it just like shoots through the moon, and you're like, holy shit!
Yep.
You just can't like look away. And like you said, they introduce some new characters in this, and they do them justice, like big time.
Yep.
Yeah. It was a really enjoyable movie, and I'm glad you guys. You're talking again. This is the kind of thing that like I love to do these of the years, because there's gonna be stuff that we hear that I'm like, I'm gonna have to check this out. And like that was the thing when we were talking about in the podcast. I'm like, I gotta watch this, and I actually watched the rest of the show only because of how, not that it was bad. It wasn't bad at all, but it was like I forced myself to get through that season one, so I can watch this movie because of how highly you guys talked of the movie. I'm like, I gotta watch this movie, and it was pretty impactful. Like, yeah, I mean, there's that character that you just had nothing for, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, like they really draw you through this whole movie to bring you into that character. So really impactful movie. All right, Mike, your number 3.
My number 3. And number 2 and 3 kind of went back and forth for me a little bit, but I think I'm gonna have it be Shang Chi.
Okay.
Again, and this was also almost my surprise. It's surprised me with how good it was. I didn't have any preconceived notions or expectations going in, and I'm also surprised that this was the movie that got me back to a movie theater for the first time in a little while. But no, it was fun. It was, it had the martial arts action that I think sometimes Marvel was missing a little bit. Got it in there. Great action early on, good story, and then some fantastical imaginative stuff at the end that was just interesting to see. And I went with my wife, and she really liked that part too, probably more than I did. I liked it, but I'm like, all right, I would have liked a little more martial arts stuff later on, but we had to, I guess, do the magic stuff. But it was fun, and I was surprised. Just a real solid movie from start to finish, and just really no complaints I could have with it.
Yeah,
so.
no, it was
on Disney Plus. You can definitely check it out. And
it's there now.
Oh, it's there now. Yep, you're right.
It's out now. Yeah,
my boys watched it, and it's so funny because they love the dragon part. They like, and it's like fighting, and then this dragon comes. And it's like, oh, cool. Like they're telling me all about it, which is very cute to listen to. But yeah, that's a fantastic film also. And
what's crazy is like that came out.
So good.
Yeah, I didn't forget that came out last year. I almost I saw the list of movies that came out last year. I'm like, that's right, it did come out last year. It's not a knock on the movie whatsoever. Just it's such a blur about 2020 and 2021. Like I'm just like, trying not to merge those 2 years together, and I was like, maybe I did see that in 2020. I'm like, nope. But that was a really good movie, so yeah, that's cool. Cory, number 3.
Yeah, so my number 3 and number 2 are also kind of bouncing between each other, and I'm just gonna leave it the way it is. And my number
Just go
3
with
is
it.
Cruella,
Ooh,
the
really?
Stone movie.
Yeah.
It was so good. I was so impressed with what they did with this villain and made a character out of this, because like this villain really has no character in the other than just being like this crazy, like
Yeah,
fur coat
crazy.
obsessed
Yeah, after dogs,
lady.
killing
Yeah.
dogs, things.
So
Yeah.
they give her like this backstory. They give her this whole reason for being the way she is and doing the things she does, and it's just so well put together that it was also up there for surprising, but Justice League just had to take that. But this movie was just it did such a good job turning this really non-existent person and fleshing her out and giving her like reasons to do things and reasons to be there and reasons to watch and you kind of see like the little bit of evil kind of steeping out here and there, but also you're rooting for it at the same time. And so that fine line that they rode there was really well done, and it really made the character more interesting as well. And the other Emma Thompson, is it? I think. Yeah, she was like as the villain in this film was so good too. Like everybody in this movie did a great job acting their parts and playing the roles that they did, and yeah, everything just came together to make this movie that was super memorable. It's like one of the films that I first thought about when we were doing these lists. Like, oh, this is gonna probably be on my list somewhere.
Cool. Yeah, no, I didn't see that, and now I'm gonna probably have to check that out with Arya at some point. So if I ever get her to stop watching Harry Potter, so I got her hooked on Harry Potter last week. Yeah, I got her hooked on Harry Potter last week, and I'm like, it's all she's watching now. But that's a movie that I know that she'd probably enjoy quite a bit as a Disney fan. So, and I want to check that out. So cool. Snake Draft, Cory, number 2.
Yeah, my number 2 is Dune. Dune is a film
I'll chime in.
Was
Yeah,
gonna be my number 1 when it came out in 2020, but no, it got delayed to this year. And yeah, of course, going to see that in the Dolby Theater was like the best experience in the movie theater in a very long time. The way that film is like presented on screen, the way that the ships are shown, and the sounds that are there, it's just very epic. It's just one of those movies that makes you feel like it's a big grandiose thing, and you want more and you keep wanting more, and it follows the story well, and it has a good pacing to it where this is a big story and they don't rush things like in the original film. They rush through everything to get all these main things that happen. Here they're leaving seeds for you to come back to later. They're really fleshing things out, but at the same time not overly what's the like narrating the whole thing for you, like, oh, here's what's happening. And there's not a lot of that where you have to be told something. Instead they're showing you things and giving you hints at things and making you curious about what's actually happening. And so for me that was very pleasant to see, because a lot of times it's just like, here guys, this is what's happening, or they're telling you instead of just letting you as a film goer discover it for yourself or kind of come to the conclusions. And of course, if you know the book, or if you know the story, you can kind of get an idea or have preconceived notions of where it's going. But they did a great job with the material that they had there, and it just looks stunning.
Oh, it looks amazing. My number 2 as well is Dune. Almost my number. I thought it was my number 1 all year. Like that almost was my surprise as well, Dune, because I listen. I was ready for a train wreck. I was ready for a terrible movie. Just because of the hype it had behind it, and I'm just like, there's no way they're gonna pull off this story. But again, like you said, they didn't rush the movie whatsoever, and it's weird to say that's a positive, because there's not a lot of action in this movie, but you never look away. Like you're hooked on it. Like you're like, why? Like I'm watching this movie, I'm like, there's literally no action. Oh, here we go, something's gonna happen here. I'm like, nope. But I'm like, I'm so into the story. I'm like, well, okay.
Of, like, political intrigue that happens.
Yeah, it's got the whole Game of Thrones political thing going on that we liked.
Houses and
yeah, it's got that whole.
behind the scenes.
You could see where Game of Thrones was inspired by this. This Dune saga, because there's no question he took the house's idea, like this whole like feuding and stuff, like this kind of level of feuding. I feel like that was straight out of Dune. And it's such a big sci-fi epic that it's so respectful in the genre that you have to almost pay homage to it if you're doing a book like that. But I love this movie, and I watched it at home on my I watched it on my OLED. It's a 65,
On this TV.
but I got the grandiose experience with that. I mean, visually this movie looked incredible. Like, I don't even know how they got there. Like, I've heard movies with big budgets, and I've seen movies with big budgets, and it's just like, it looks fine, but this looks incredible for what they pulled off. It just seamlessly integrates everything, and you don't even realize what you're seeing. It's crazy to say is you don't realize what you're seeing. It's like CG. It's so integrated in so well. Like, they've done it so well with everything. It works. And I think because you're watching a sci-fi epic, like you're just like ready for it. But all the acting, nobody did a bad job. I felt like everything was really well done. And there's some big name actors in this, and they all contributed properly to this story. And it was good. I really, really, really enjoyed this movie. And like I said, it was my movie of the year until recently. So, but it was fantastic. That's how much I really enjoyed it. And I thought I was going to surprise everybody with my movie of the year being Dune, because Cory raved about it. I was pretty quiet, but I really enjoyed it quite a bit.
Now, does it do a good adaptation of, because like it's supposed to be an entire book, right?
It's not an entire book. It's part one.
Oh,
yeah.
Like half of the book, or like
it's not even. It's like maybe okay. I guess it'll be half. Yeah.
Jesus.
But they ended at a point where it makes sense.
It ended it nicely. It makes you want to watch more, and it had a good ending. And it was not like
definitely. I mean, it's not like a Empire ending or anything like that. Big downer, but at the same time, things aren't great.
Resolved. Things aren't resolved. Gotcha.
Yeah.
A lot of open ended, but it was some cool threads that you wanted to see what happens. You know what I mean? That it was really well done. So, Tony, your number. Wait, where am I on? Mike, you're number 2. I skipped ahead.
My number 2, again, I saw 4 movies, so I'm going to go back to Justice League, Zack Snyder's Justice League. Again, just because it was the most movie content I watched all year, and every character had time to have their own moments. They're redeemed in a lot of ways compared to how we've seen them before that. And yeah, we got, especially Cyborg, we had this whole storyline basically centered around him. Everything made sense. Motivations were better, and
got this big step up.
Big step up. We got Darkseid a little bit, and it was just it's just a good version of this movie, but very long, and it was almost like its own series. It was like a series in a movie, and self-contained in a way. But I was so glad we got to see that come to fruition finally, because really I almost think that aside from the fact of Snyder sort of getting Batman mostly wrong, in my opinion, as far as philosophy goes, his other issue has been he hasn't had time in his theatrical releases to make a story that doesn't feel cut to shit. His other, like Batman versus Superman, felt cut to shit. I'm sure even the director's cut felt like it was like hopping around and missing stuff and stupid. So this was finally like, let's give him a chance to see what he wants to see. And aside from the dream sequence at the end, which was nice to see, but it did feel a little gratuitous to me.
Yeah.
Everything else was
fuck.
It was just unnecessary.
Yeah. Everything else was just made sense. It improved those versions of the characters immensely. And the Justice League is my favorite superhero team. They haven't had much since the cartoons, but this was finally a decent representation of them that I've been waiting for a little bit. So yeah, it was fun to watch for 4.5 hours or however long it was.
I mean, I have to say that it does redeem Zack Snyder, because that bar for him is quite low. What's funny is like Joss had a good level of after Avengers, how he pulled it off, but he did Ultron, right? And then he did this. And I'm just like, after seeing the other cut, I'm like, he got outdone, and it's like, wow. So yeah, I didn't expect it, and I'm not saying like for me it doesn't like. I'm sorry, I don't think I said this back when we watched it. I'm not saying it's not like the be all end all holy shit like for me, but I understand your love of it now. But you guys like the universe, and I'm ready to move on, so it's fine. I win. We're gonna move on. So.
Was it a nice send off for these characters at least? I guess.
Yeah, it was. It was actually very nice. It was very nice. I like Cavill. I still want him. I still would love him to be Superman, but the ends justifies the means. For me, I'm ready. I'm ready for a new Justice League style.
You know that the other rumors right now. Sorry to bring a little rumor news in here. Is that there's no guarantee that there's going to be a sequel to The Batman. That's what I heard.
I know that. I'm fine with that. Like I'm sure that's going to be a one-off. I'm not talking about that Batman. I'm talking about what we're looking at now with Michael Keaton. They're really diving into Batman.
We're going to start a new universe with 70-year-old Batman now. That's our thing.
Did you see I posted in the Discord about the Robin artwork on the wall from the movie from Batgirl. So with Michael Keaton's updated look of Batman. So it looks good. I'm psyched. Michael Keaton has done a fantastic job on things, and an older Bruce Wayne, like a Batman Beyond style, which we talked about years ago on this podcast.
We had an older Bruce Wayne with this last one, but whatever. We had like a pushing 50 Batman.
Batman Beyond style Batman is what we're going to get, and I like that. So, all right. Flashpoint, we'll see what it does. Tony, number 2.
My number 2 was Shang Chi as well.
Nice.
Wasn't sure who else was going, so I figured I'd wait. But for me, it was just really cool to see. Again, just like Black Panther did a couple of years ago, that representation of a new group. Whereas you look at Avengers Phase 1 of Marvel, it's like, oh cool, like 5 different white dudes. It's like, okay, cool. But you have like this huge universe and pool of like almost endless supply of characters to choose from, and it's like, okay. So the representation matters, and I think it was really nice to see that finally happen especially after Feige got his chance to get promoted and stop having to report to what the fuck is his name, Isaac. What's his name? I don't even remember. He doesn't fucking matter. He's a piece of shit.
Igor. Yeah, Igor.
Is it?
Igor. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Igor's. Yeah, Igor left, right? No, Perlmutter, wasn't it Perlmutter?
Ike Perlmutter. That's it.
Yeah, that's it. I'm sorry,
he's a piece of shit. But once I didn't want
to call the wrong guy the piece of shit. Sorry,
right.
I want to make sure.
Right. Yeah. And it's actually ironic that both this and Black Widow would not have happened, in my opinion, if Ike Perlmutter was still around. Because he's right side hardcore conservative Trumper, and it's like, yeah, diversity, like women, yeah, none of that. But anyway, straying away from politics. The movie was solid. It was really, really good. They jumped right into it. I think the bus fight sequence happens in the first 10 minutes of the movie or something like that, which was my honest favorite part of the movie, just in terms of like a fight choreography. Like I watched that scene lots and lots of times because I just think it hits on so many levels. And that's what this movie really did for me.
The guy was hilarious.
Sorry. Streaming guy. Yeah, the guy from Spider-Man. Do a flip! Yeah, and stuff like that. He's like...
Yeah, like, I did a little kung fu, so I'm going to try to give you play-by-play. Or whatever.
Yeah.
That was like one of the best lines. But yeah, continue.
But it was nice to see, a character that was grounded in reality again. It wasn't like he had superpowers right from the get-go. He's not a god. He's not an alien. He's wasn't injected with drugs and stuff like that. Gamma rays, stuff like that. It was just like, I was just trained from birth as like a ninja assassin dude. It's like, all right, cool. And the character is very likable. Seemingly just plays him really well. He's a very charismatic lead and stuff like that. Kind of broke down a little bit. I think I'm not as harsh on her as you guys are, but Awkwafina, I don't really care for her, but I wasn't like offended. I
didn't like her. That's the only negative part in that movie. I didn't like her in that movie. I just didn't.
When I said no complaints, I think when they sort of injected her too much into the finale.
The finale was kind of like a little. All right, whatever. But other than that, I mean, the story was really interesting. I liked how we saw even more of the MCU when they went to visit. Was it Madripoor? Where his sister's thing was? Or am I getting it mixed up with another city?
I think. Yeah, they named out drop that in Winter Soldier, I think, but the same type of thing.
Yeah, same type of thing. With like underground fight club ring, stuff like that. That had actually a widow in it. I think Cory had mentioned that on the podcast. I didn't even notice the first time, and then obviously we got to see Sorcerer Supreme Wong there in Abomination, stuff like that. But I thought it was an interesting family dynamic going into it with instead of like a political drama or something like that. It was like it's, at the core it's really about a broken family, and the main lead for the villain, what's his name, Tony Jung? Yeah, he is just fantastic. He steals every scene he's in that movie. He's just a wonderful actor. And again, spoiler, it's kind of unfortunate. We're probably not going to see too much more of him in the future because Marvel just likes to dispose of their villains and stuff like that. But just from the choreography to the expansion of the more mythological aspect of the MCU, it's really cool, and I can't wait to see more of this character, and hopefully his inclusion in a more crossover dynamic whenever we get back to Avengers type stuff.
Definitely. This movie was so good, and like the ring representation is really cool. Like we saw a Mandarin before, and then they addressed it in this movie, and you get to see what the 10 rings really are, and how they interpret them. This is really neat. I really enjoyed that aspect of it.
Yeah, that was really well done. It was definitely a very enjoyable movie. Great fight sequences, and like you said, the exception of Awkwafina for me, I enjoyed every other character in this movie, and I didn't even hate her. I just felt like it was over the top. That's all.
Yeah, I think we said in our spoiler too. It's like she's usually like an annoying character, and it's hard to not be annoying when your voice is kind of like
that just got to me over and over again.
She's good in this. I liked her in this, and I felt that she did a good job. So, her character's reactions, her character's like attitude and things were all kind of what I think normal people would react to, seeing this crazy stuff happen in their life.
Yeah.
Especially when you believe this guy's like not a super assassin.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right. Number one of the year movies. We're here. We have arrived.
I think we got a consensus. I think we got a consensus, folks.
Do we have a sweet? I don't want to speak for everybody else.
Is this the first time it's happened? I don't know.
Should we just all say it on 3?
If we all say something different, it'll be hilarious. So on 3, 1, 2, 3. No way.
Spider-Man. Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. Yeah. So listen, I'll kick us off with it. It's our of the year. Wow, a consensus. This may be the first time in the history of this 10 years or whatever we've been doing this for. We have a consensus of the year.
I believe Avengers wasn't all of our. I don't know. It's hard to believe.
I don't think. Maybe it might have been. I don't know.
I don't know. Some of you guys liked Dark Knight Rises that year, so.
Yeah.
It was the same year.
What?
Same summer.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, you might have liked some of it. We talked shit about that movie and how it was not great.
I don't know. Like, I mean, at the release, some of you, I don't remember who, but some of you were positive.
I
movie.
think
I
it
was
was
like, okay.
I liked more. I think I liked it.
I think Avengers took it. though.
We'll have to do our homework.
Because there was that bad acting sequence with what's her name, and I'm just like that death sequence. I'm just like, really, that just killed that movie for me. Yeah, and for you, the people.
It took a second
viewing
viewing for me to not like that movie.
Yeah,
I liked it enough
we
the
went to
first
see it
time.
in the IMAX theater together, and then they saw it in like the non.
That's right. I saw it non-IMAX. That's right.
The people were hyped.
I had to go back.
In our
That's right. I had to go back and watch the second time because you guys had a different experience. I was like, that wasn't that good, and you're like, that was great. I'm like, that wasn't that good. But all right, I didn't see that with a witch, so.
Oh god.
Yeah. Anyway, so No Way Home, my number one movie, our number one movie. The reason why obviously it made my number one, it's not that it's even just the number one movie this year for me. It's in my top movies of all time already. It's Spider-Man 2, I have mentioned before on this podcast over and over again. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2 has been one of my top movies of all time as it was. It now gets off that list. It just goes down because you have the like superior Spider-Man version with Alfred Molina still being him in this movie, and I
Yeah,
thought he was.
Yeah, I wouldn't even like talk about it like that though, because this can't be the way it is without Spider-Man 2
But
existing
sure, it
already.
can't exist without it. But I'm just like, for me, this is like on my list. It's already like way up there. Like it's in that list. I've watched this over and over again. I've already like my brother wants to go to the movies. I'm like, I'll go check it out with you. I'll go see it. But it's coming out soon anyways, February 28th, I think it is. But I enjoy this movie so much. They like every aspect of this. The different Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
like
in reference to what I was going to say for the surprise of the year, like I wanted to say this as surprise of the year because I had high expectations anyway. But like they really did blow them all out of the water. Like because again, and we talked about it in the spoiler cast. And for those of you who've seen this movie, I would recommend listening to our spoiler cast. I think we did like an hour and a half on this movie alone.
it was a long
just because
spoiler
it was
We did a big deep dive.
right.
There's
It was
so
a,
much to talk about.
yeah, there's so much to talk about it. So if you love the movie, check out that episode. You can find it in the past 5 or 6, I think. Or
Yeah, it was really recent.
It was really recent. But there's so many ways this movie could have gone like wrong, or just even like kind of like fell flat. Like where it's like, oh, okay, that's a thing. But and like I talked about Matrix. There's and even before that, with Star Wars and other stuff. There are right ways to do nostalgia, and there are wrong ways to do nostalgia. And I can't think of a single thing in Spider-Man No Way Home that is a bad example of nostalgia. Like everything they do, everything they show, everything they say is done in a way that like makes you feel good, but still doesn't detract from the movie. Where it's like, like wink, wink, hey, there's that blue pill or something like that. It's just like this is helping add to the movie, in my opinion.
And the thing to me is too, like if we want to talk about the Matrix again, that was done in a way where it does feel bad. Like the creators were judging you for wanting any of this stuff in the movie again. Like almost explicitly stating, it's like, you are so stupid for wanting to see more of this.
yeah,
but here it is.
that's what that felt like. That
Like
nailed
that,
it. That is it.
that's what that felt like. That
Yeah.
you didn't have that at all here. It's just like, oh, you want to see a couple memes in this movie? Okay, we'll throw them in, but they'll still make sense where they're there, where they are, and it'll be funny, but not like overpower anything. We'll do that. You want your cameos to be actual parts in this movie from these old movies? Sure, let's do it. And it's like, you know what? Let's just make that kind of not the whole movie, but most, like half of the movie is about these previous movies almost. They're the characters, and it was just a love letter to Spider-Man fans from the past 20 years, pretty much. It was, this is the Spider-Man movie in a way, and it was respectful to old fans, new fans, those weird in-between people who like Garfield Spider-Man the most.
Well, I mean, he's been revitalized,
and that's what I was going to say. Like the surprise to me was this movie like actually made me appreciate Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man. When before I clearly was like, nah, you're the worst, man. Like you're a good, Spider-Man in the suit, but like your Peter Parker could use some work. And like to me, one of the most impactful moments in the movie was when he saved. Again, spoiler, sorry, if you're still defined. But MJ, like, I actually like got a little like teary-eyed because I was like, that was the thing that like really hurt that character, and to see him get that redemption and that was the second chance.
That was the last thing we saw.
Right, that was the last thing.
Was his failure. Yeah,
exactly. So it's just like.
No, actually, I remember it wasn't, because they're like,
Rhino,
let's just make him go fight Rhino for no reason afterwards. He's all better now. I'm like, okay, but it was that was it. That scene too. Like, I didn't even like that character that much.
Yeah, I didn't either. And it has
it's like this movie really like showed how great Spider-Man is, and how like look at these characters and what they can do, and how emotional like journeys that they go through, and then they all three of them, because you got the Toby, you got the Andrew Garfield, and you got obviously Tom Holland Spider-Man here, and how they all had to go through like a ton of shit to become who they are, and then being able to do it together to help Tom Holland's Spider-Man to kind of send him off into the world
to get him to where he needs to be.
Spider-Man. It was a really like meta thing almost going on there, where it's like You
Oh yeah,
know,
they definitely did
thank
that a
you,
little bit too.
Spider-Man, like for being there for me to like show me the way and to now like bring me up and to
Yeah.
propel me into the new Spider-Man world, and now I can be Spider-Man with your blessing almost. And it was really kind
Yeah.
of like, whoa, this is a weird parallel we got going on here.
No,
And
and
yeah, it's really cool to see that these characters came from where they are now and not where they were back then. Like we talk about, like I know I mentioned on the Spoilercast, Mike, how it's like we only are hearing about things that happened in those movies because that's all we know. But really, like they come in, like Toby's this like older character who's been
Yeah.
through some shit, but he's talking about the things that are impactful to Tom Holland's Spider-Man now, which were impactful to him at the time because it's the same point in time that he was going through in those movies. Same with Andrew Garfield. He's coming in this dark place
kind
where
of.
he's lost Gwen and he's lost like his MJ, and now he's got to deal with that, and he's still kind of coming through. And so they all help each other, lift each other up, and it's like we're here to lift you up, and that's what I was saying. Like when I first saw, I was like, we're here to lift you guys up and not bring you down, because this movie was the complete opposite of what we saw with Matrix that we mentioned earlier.
Yeah, it's funny mentioning the Matrix too, because you talk about the meta commentary, even about like the sort of uncomfortable reception of the amazing movies, but they have the meta commentary where they're like, oh yeah, no, you were good, you're great, you're amazing.
You're amazing.
For
You're amazing.
For him.
Say it.
And again, it's we have the opposite again, and the meta commentary with the Matrix was just like, oh, we have to do this. This sucks. You all suck for wanting this. This is going to be garbage. Like it's just you can do the same things, but make it appealing, and that's what this movie did. That's what the Matrix didn't do.
Make it something that the fans can latch onto and remember and feel good about instead of like I said, feel bad about.
And for me, a lot of it too is that Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. It's not like they like showed up and just stole the show. They were like in like the last third, which to me just was like that perfect amount of time where it's like still impactful, but not trying to draw away from like Tom Holland's arc, his story. Because to me, like if this movie was the last movie for Tom Holland's Spider-Man, I would still be perfectly happy. Like that's a great bookend closure, and we can leave it up to our imagination on what his Spider-Man journey is next and stuff like that. But to me, it was a conclusion to the other two as well, in that we see that Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, like he's got it figured out. He gets to have it all. He gets to be Spider-Man. He gets Mary Jane. He has that happily ever after, and he's got that almost older like maturity and mentality where he's just like mentoring both of them, because they're there absolutely to help Tom Holland Spider-Man, but in that way in the lab scene with Andrew Garfield, he was helping him do that too, because Andrew's like, no girlfriend for me, like us and stuff like that. He's like, actually MJ and I worked it out, and like you could see that kind of like curiosity, that spark in Andrew Garfield's eye, that like, hey, maybe I still can find love, maybe I can still find self-worth in his failure and stuff like that. So to me it was like a perfect bookend for both of those movies too, because Spider-Man 3, that didn't exactly have the most feel-good ending either. It's kind of like, okay, it's like we're done now with Tobey Maguire Spider-Man and stuff like that. And obviously Andrew Garfield never got a third movie for his run of Spider-Man and stuff like that. So to me it just feels good all around. You
think about Spider-Man 3's ending and how it's like a bummer ending. He's like, I gotta walk away from everybody. She wants me. I can't be with her because I'm going to put her in danger. And the ending is him walking away from his, Harry's grave. Right?
I honestly didn't remember that. That's how that movie.
It is almost the opposite here, where it's like he has to make that choice of like, I can be with this woman, but I will put her in danger, and I'm going to put her through all this shit. Instead, like I'm gonna just like let her have a happy life, not knowing what this is like. I'm gonna be Spider-Man, and who knows what's gonna happen in the future. Obviously, they'll be back. There's something there, but it was more hopeful. Like it was more like I felt like he's doing this.
He functionally does the same thing, but it's happier
but it's
this time.
Different. Yeah, absolutely.
It's better.
Everybody's in a better place. Like nobody's like in a bummer state. But yeah, it was like the same thing, but. It was like, wow, this is a happy ending, where the other one was like a bummer ending.
Yeah, no, they I guess everything about this story was really well done, and this whole saga, like the thing for me is like I have to say that this was so impressive that because for some reason like as I'm watching this again, I'm waiting for that miss. Like I'm waiting for it just not to work. Like we've seen it with Spider-Man before, and
The
I'm like
threes don't work well too much.
twos don't work well. It's amazing, and it's just like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. Is what I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. So I was waiting for, and it didn't drop, and I'm like, this is give them credit. A trilogy
how about Willem Dafoe?
entirely.
Oh yeah, and that's it. We didn't even touch the villains.
Yeah.
We didn't even touch the villains. Thank you for bringing that up.
We did a whole movie based on Sam Raimi villains. Really, I mean, they didn't even make a new villain for this movie. They just used the best villains they had. That was fantastic. It was fantastic.
Yeah, like I mean, it's so cool, and you know, this is one of those things where like, it almost feels like I'm trying to figure out the right word, like almost, what is it, clandestine? Like where it's just like seeing that all those actors were, serendipitous, where it's like those actors fortunately are still around to reprise those roles, and that we're willing to reprise those roles just for the sake of like, obviously, you know, they want to get paid and stuff like that, but we're like doing something where it's like, oh, this is really cool, this is for the fans, like this makes sense, and like for them to put that much effort into it, again, like it didn't feel like anybody was phoning it in at all. I mean, what?
Oh, I mean, Willem Dafoe did 12 minutes too. I think he might do anything.
Well, sure. I mean, we'll get into that. We'll get into that. Spoiler. We'll get into that in another week.
12 minutes has its own time coming. I promise you.
But for William Dafoe, and I mentioned this on the Spoilercast, he only agreed to come back if they let him do as many stunts as he physically could, which is just insane to me.
Right in.
Yeah,
and, like didn't miss a beat. Like he was.
Yeah.
This was like he was even creepier, worse. Like the schizophrenia type of polar bipolar.
They really leaned into it like crazy. Yeah, leaned into it like crazy.
Dissociative identity. Yeah.
Yeah, it was awesome. He was fantastic in this, and he absolutely. It was a highlight. And Jamie Foxx was fantastic. Like,
Jamie Foxx did great. And I hated Jamie Foxx before.
What are we doing here? Like, why is this guy
character was terrible before,
He had a terrible role. Like, he just phoned it in on Spider-Man 2 as well. He did terrible in that movie. He just didn't want to do it. This was like, he was interested in this. He wanted to be there.
Yeah, and
he seems a little bit like a different character altogether, but that's fine. The first character sucked.
Yeah,
exactly. It's called interest. Finally, Mike, it's interest. That's the difference of the character.
And then what's his name? Is Doc Ock actor's name?
Alfred Molina.
Alfred Molina.
Yeah, it's so cool to see him in like the de-aging technology. Like, didn't seem awkward or anything like that at all. And like to me, because Jim, when you talk about like Spider-Man 2 was absolutely my favorite superhero movie of the OOs. Like, there's no question in my mind. That was what
I like the first one better.
What subliminally, like, that's everything, like, every superhero movie I kind of subconsciously compared to Spider-Man 2 because, like, that just gave
There's
me...
a lot of Blade during that time. There's
there's a lot, X-Men, X-Men 1 and 2 especially, and stuff like that. But to see him, because I considered him the best villain, in terms of, like, a sympathetic one and stuff like that. To see him get that, to reprise that role, and then he gets closure as well. Like, the villains get their own closure. And I didn't mention the Spoilcast, and I was kicking myself, but, like, the part where Toby... and him interact just for like that, like 30 seconds or something like that, like just like made my heart gush because obviously had that really good relationship in Spider-Man 2, and it unfortunately got taken away, because of tragedy and stuff like that. But just to see them being able to interact, and I love this about the Spider-Man character, and that he's always compassionate. At least, I'm sure you could pull comics where he wasn't and stuff like that, but at least in the movies, they're always sympathetic and they're always compassionate to their rogues gallery, because they know these are flawed individuals, and it's not just like, mustache twirling, evil generic dude or something like that. And how, he was like, I've thought for years on how to cure, Goblin and, stuff like that. So like that, even that sequence where it was all the scientists
like ready to go with it.
Right. Yeah. All the scientists trying to fix each other and stuff like that. I thought was like super cool.
Yeah, no, it was fantastic. Definitely a movie of the year, without a doubt. A movie of, it could be multiple movie of the year for different decades.
Spoiler alert. This is
Marvel bar. This is just went blew past it. Like,
this is probably going to be in consideration for top of the 20s. Here for me when we get to the
we get to
2030.
decade,
Yeah, best of the decade.
Wow. Yeah. Jesus.
Well, yeah, as far as all times go, it's put itself in the conversation already.
Absolutely, and you could see that the proof is in the pudding. I mean, the movie is on track to be number 5 domestic of all time. It's already cracked a 1 and some change of billion, and that's without China. Like, that's crazy during a pandemic. Like, it's almost insane,
COVID,
right?
During COVID,
during COVID,
post the breakout COVID, like it's just we were talking about we wouldn't see $1 billion movie for years and years, and here we go, like 1 year later.
Yeah, yep.
So it's amazing that Spider-Man can do, and I just have to give all the props to the Sony for seeing the light coming back to Marvel.
And that's it. Can you imagine if like a universe where we didn't get this movie?
We'd have Venom, dude. We'd have Venom.
Wow. Yeah, no, I just am so impressed with how well they did this Spider-Man trilogy. So, like Tony said, I'd be even happy with it ending here. Again, because I'm also a little worried that they're going to screw it up again. So, like, always guarded because I'm just like, I don't want them to mess this. It's been, this is like, this is a perfect 3 movies for a superhero. This was you really can't fault them for these 3 movies. They've really done a pretty good
thing. Is like you always feel like they're trying to set something up, like this is like Avengers, Ultron was set up or whatever to get the next stage, and like here they had something they're setting up, but it didn't feel like it was like just thrown in there to be hey, we got to get this set up for the next movie, guys. Hey, look at what we're gonna do next. It felt like this was an important part of the film that needed to happen for this film to exist, instead of, well, we're gonna have this film and then we're gonna throw this other thing in there, so hey, remember we got other movies in this universe. Now it made a lot of sense, and so now like we gotta look forward to what's coming from both Doctor Strange and Spider-Man in the future, hopefully.
Yeah, cool. And that is our of the year, I think. Yeah, that's all of it.
Yeah.
We've gotten our list done, guys. Once again, worsts: The Matrix and Venom. Surprises were Justice League, Black Widow, and the Eternals. And then the best, just number 1 really, is No Way Home. Consensus, which is cool to have. Like, all of us have agreed. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We have Gamecast of the years coming up next week. TV shows of the year as well coming up. So be sure to watch for those. There's still some great stuff to talk about on that. We'll see you guys. Write us allgeek@gmail.com. We're on Twitter, on Twitch. If you're watching this, watch us on Twitch, guys, live on Tuesday nights, on YouTube the day after. Thanks, guys. We'll see you soon.
Power of the sun in the palm of my hand.
Greatest quote, greatest line.